members, I will give the call to the Honourable Brian Ellis and add my welcome as a member of this chamber. But I remind members also that this is the member's inaugural speech, and it is the custom of the House that the member will be afforded the usual courtesies. The Honourable Brian Ellis.
Yeah. Mr. Acting President, while I am deeply conscious of the honour and privilege that has been bestowed on me by being given this chance to represent the electors of the agricultural region, I am also saddened by the circumstances that have led to me being a member of this Parliament. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely wish Margaret Rowe all the best in her battle to overcome illness. I hope she has a speedy recovery. Her health is far more important than a political career. Mr. Acting President and fellow members of this Council, I'd like to take a few moments to acknowledge those people whose efforts and support have made my entry into this House so much easier than it would have been. Firstly, I thank the WA Division of the Liberal Party for nominating me for this vacancy to represent the agricultural region. I realise a tremendous amount of faith and trust has been placed in me, and I do not intend to breach that faith and trust. I am committed to being a worthy representative of the agricultural region. Without the support of one's family, none of us in this House would be able to perform to the best of our abilities. I am also very privileged to have a family whose support and encouragement has been unwavering even at the most difficult times. My wife, Marg, has been my greatest supporter for 36 years and also my greatest critic. So I know that if I neglect my duties or lose touch with the electorate, she will be the first to bring me back to reality. To my son, Toby, daughter, Lara, daughter-in-law, Peter, my son-in-law, Bruce, my grandchildren, Jack, Harvey, Olivia and Sienna, I thank you all for your encouragement. I would like to thank Doug Teeney, who started me on a political career when he talked me into standing for the Moira Shire Council to represent the Bindi Bindi ward of the Shire. Doug had served on the Moira Shire Council with distinction and had set a high standard as a role model to follow. He has also been a wonderful mentor and someone whose advice I respect. Thank you, Doug. I also acknowledge my Liberal colleagues and other members of this House for their guidance and assistance they have given me as a new member. In particular, I would like to thank the Honourable Bruce Donaldson for his advice and encouragement. As the leader of the Liberal team for the agricultural region, he has been most helpful with information and advice on what is expected of me to be an effective member. Mr. Acting President, I also extend my thanks to you, the President, the Deputy President, the Clerk, the officers and staff of the House for the advice and guidance that they have extended to me since my swearing-in ceremony. I am most grateful. As is customary in an inaugural speech, I will give a brief overview of my background. I'm a third-generation farmer from Bindi Bindi and also Kalingri. I was educated at the Bindi Bindi Primary School and spent 5 years boarding at the Guildford Grammar School to achieve my leaving certificate. Sadly, my father died quite young, and I found myself at an early age supporting a new family and running a farming business that I knew little about. As you can imagine, this was a very steep learning curve for me that has held me in good stead to this present day. Even though I've been actively involved in many community groups and organisations, I have not always had intentions of a political career. It wasn't until I became a councillor on the Moira Shire and in particular the 1999 Moira floods, when I was Deputy Shire President, that I realised I could make a difference to people's lives for the better by assisting them both state and federally, at both state and federal levels, that is. It is with some pride that the Shire President and good friend, the late Michael Bates, and I received the Distinguished Service Award for service to the community from the West Australian Local Government Association. Since that time, I have become more interested in following a political career, and it is fitting that now I am a member representing the agriculture region, as I have lived and served in this region all my life. The agriculture region is a large and diverse electorate, and I appreciate the difficulties representing such a large region. I have had some experience in servicing this region through my membership of the Rural Water Council and as a director of the Wheatbelt Area Consultative Committee. The Wheatbelt Area Consultative Committee is a federal government initiative funded through the Department of Transport and Regional Services. The committee covers an area of the wheatbelt the size of Tasmania and has an objective to build community capacity to find local solutions to local problems and create sustainable economic opportunities. During my time on this committee, I gained an insight into the very real social and economical problems that the agriculture regional areas are facing, particularly the youth in these areas. It is a great concern to me that at a time when the state is booming economically, the rural areas and towns that support them in my electorate are facing another year of drought and economical decline, forcing many young people to look for a better future outside of the region. These people will not return unless economic conditions improve and the infrastructure, such as roads, employment opportunities and social outlets are provided. I realise the time constraints, but I would like to raise a few issues of concern to me. While the agricultural region has a variety of different industries, ranging from fishing and mining to tourism and aquaculture, and many more, it is agriculture that particularly concerns me. As I mentioned before, I come from a small town called Bindi Bindi, which has suffered the same fate as many small towns throughout the agricultural region. When I first came home from boarding school, there were 4 basketball teams, a football team, a cricket side, day and night tennis, approximately 50 to 60 children at the school, 2 shops, a post office, church, a thriving community. Now there is none of these things left. Even the wheat bin is in mothballs. I accept that this is inevitable as demographics change and populations reduce. I do believe those of us who choose to live and work in these regions have to adapt to change and to the changes taking place and embrace the opportunities that can often come with change. However, governments can help by making sure regional infrastructure is in place. We need good roads so people have reliable access to their major centres and towns, health facilities such as hospitals and doctors, law enforcement with police and police stations, so people can feel safe in their communities. One thing that no one can control is Mother Nature, and that is a major concern facing the agricultural region as many areas enter another year of drought. As one of the very few practising farmers in the West Australian Parliament, I am sure members of this House will understand my concerns for the agriculture industry. Apart from a small percentage of my electorate, most farming areas are entering their second year of drought conditions, with expected yields 30 to 50% below average. Some shires, such as Northampton, Morawar and Dalwallinu, are the worst affected, with wheat yields expected to rank among the worst 10% on record for those areas. Even though many areas have received good rains over the last month, it has come too late for some. These farmers will be facing a very bleak future as they meet with their bank managers to try and find ways of surviving so they continue to farm next year. I'm sure the Honourable Minister for Agriculture is concerned about the situation and the economic and social ramifications of another drought. Hopefully he can find ways of assisting those in dire need before it becomes too late to help them. I would encourage the Minister to consider the proposal put forward by the opposition's spokesman for Agriculture, Gary Snook MLA, to subsidise the rates of the drought-declared shires by 50%. This would give tangible support for those shires and assist everyone in the shire, not just farmers, and would allow councils to carry on with their works programs. If I can assist in any way, I would be only too pleased to help wherever possible. While I congratulate the Minister for granting a trial of GM canola in the Esperance area, I do think we are past trialling GMOs, and I believe there is an urgent need for the Western Australian Government to reconsider its opposition to commercial production of GM products because biotechnology will give farmers hope for the future. Biotechnology is winning surprising support internationally with the United States, Canada and many South American countries, China and India, and significant number of European countries who are now planting biotech crops. It is my understanding that globally, the total area of the biotech plantings rose some 13% in 2006 from previous years, involving 10 million farmers and more than 10 million hectares. I believe it is time to move on from the argument about Frankenstein foods, promoted by special interest groups who encourage a fear campaign. We need to have a rational debate based on facts and scientific information. Furthermore, while many farmers will want access to new biotechnologies such as drought-tolerant crops, others will choose not to grow these crops for various reasons. Nonetheless, if there is no scientifically based reason for denying access, farmers should have choice, and the normal rules of the market should prevail. Western Australian farmers must have access to this technology as soon as possible if they are not to face compromised competitiveness and miss out on moving to better environmental management. Another area of interest and concern to me is the problems that many Aboriginal communities are facing today. Earlier in my career, I was president of the local football side that amalgamated with an all-Aboriginal football team. These players had skills that you would not believe and were a joy to play with as teammates. Sadly, some succumbed to alcohol abuse and their football careers, and in some cases their lives, were brought to a premature end. I also worked with Aboriginal leaders when I was a Moora Shire councillor and have an understanding of how difficult it is for these leaders to combat problems facing their communities. So I applaud the federal government for having the courage and initiative to tackle this issue. I would encourage the state government to work with the federal government in a bipartisan way and not play politics with this issue. This is about children's health and their future. All sides of politics have not handled the issues facing Aboriginal communities well in the past, but now there is an opportunity to correct that. It is time to get past the handout mentality and put in place worthwhile programs that will help these communities to help themselves. Through education and meaningful jobs, I am sure the other problems can be overcome. One of the most concerning issues facing our society today is the issue of drugs. I cannot help thinking that in many cases, when we hear of another violent attack or bashing, road rage, and many other law and order issues, that drugs have played some part. I feel drugs can be linked to much of the antisocial behaviour we are being confronted with today, and I find it impossible to accept that by taking a soft approach to a drug such as cannabis is sending the correct message to those people that use it. The laws we have now send a message that we do not consider cannabis to be a serious problem, and there are no health issues connected with its use. I cannot accept we, as lawmakers, are prepared to send a message to young people that smoking marijuana is harmless. There are some serious health problems associated with the use of cannabis and how it often leads to much harder drugs. I support the Australian Medical Association and calls from the police for an overhaul of the state government's soft cannabis laws. A trend in society that does concern me greatly is the lack of responsibility taken by the individual for their actions. It seems these days that it's everyone else's fault if something happens to an individual, but never their own fault. I'm sure we have all heard of incidents such as a person picking up a hot piece of metal after welding it and burning their hand. Then it is an employer's fault for not telling them that it was hot. Or someone who twists their ankle in a hole while walking across a park, then suing the local council because they believe there should have been signs up warning of the hazard. Where should this responsibility start? I believe it must start at home with the parents, not with some government department telling the parents and their children how to behave. The parents must instil into their children to take responsibility for their actions and have respect for authority and their elders. It is not acceptable to just send the children off to school and expect the teachers to take on the role of both teacher and parent. I don't accept that it is more difficult to bring up children today than it was in previous generations. Just because mum and dad both work does not excuse them of their responsibilities. Why is it any harder to bring up children now than when our parents brought up large families without all the assistance that is provided today? How did the mother of 8 children manage to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, light the wood stove with the wood she probably chopped from the night before, cook the breakfast, get the kids ready for school, help the husband on the farm, get the housework done and prepare more meals before getting to bed about 10 p.m. that night? How did she deal with little Johnny when he fell out of the tree after looking for birds' eggs? She would give him a cuddle, say everything is all right and send him outside and tell him to be more careful next time. Today the mother would probably rush outside and cuddle little Johnny, but send father out with a chainsaw to cut the tree down, as it would have been the tree's fault. Of course, the next morning, a government department would be knocking on the door, threatening to prosecute little Johnny for taking the birds' eggs. And probably by the afternoon, there would be another department threatening the father with prosecution for illegally clearing of the tree. It probably would not finish there, as the next morning another department would be on the doorstep to take little Johnny away from his parents because they should never have let him climb the tree in the first place. Mr. Acting President, I do not mean to make light of serious neglect or employers who do not provide safe workplaces, but I feel we have gone too far towards a nanny state, and I do not want to end up like the United States of America, where the first thought is to go to litigation to solve a problem. I believe it is time for good old basic common sense to be used by government departments, and governments should only interfere in people's lives if it becomes absolutely necessary. Government should provide amenities through infrastructure and good management of the economy so that people can get on with their lives in the knowledge that they have a secure future. When I mentioned to a friend of mine, while we were having a beer together, that it looked like I'd be elected to represent the agriculture region, he was shocked. He probably didn't say it in the words I'm going to say, but he said, "Why on earth do you want to be a politician? They are perceived as living off the taxpayer and not in touch with the real world. I know that the vast majority of politicians are hard-working, trustworthy and conscientious people, but the public's perception of politicians seems to be more in tune with that of my friends. I hope that I can contribute in some small way to changing that perception of the public and to maintain the high standards set in this House in order to build the confidence of the people in us as legislators." It was interesting when I said to my friend, "Okay, you give me a better system of government." He couldn't come up with anything better. So he just said, "You'd better buy me another beer before you lose touch with the real people." I hadn't changed his opinion. In summary, Mr. Acting President, I have only touched on some of the issues that are of concern to me. There are obviously many more, and no doubt they will be explored and debated at a future date. In conclusion, Mr. Acting President, I thank you for the opportunity to address this House, and I also thank the members of this House for their attention. I hope I can make a small positive contribution to the good government of this Parliament and our great state. Thank you.